I rely on BLS data for a lot of my, background and information about what's happening in the labor market, but that's not the only data source that I look at. At ZipRecruiter, we have a lot of information on our job posting marketplace that can kind of point to the direction so I can see where things are moving in a little bit more real time than BLS data allows for. What we're seeing on ZipRecruiter right now is that the job postings have started to slow down through the middle of September into early October. And so what we were seeing, those trends in BLS data are likely continuing. If we had gotten the jobs report earlier this month, it very well would have pointed to a reduction in job growth, similar to what we've seen over the past 3 months or so.
So there's this lack of data. That's one thing. And then there's, of course, what's happening with the federal government. And Paul mentioned just a moment ago, we've had a government shutdown now for 2 weeks, and it looks like it's going to continue perhaps for 2 weeks or more longer. How does that manifest itself in the data? What weight is that having on the U.S. labor markets? Of course, we hear about these furloughs. There's the specter of the Office of Management and Budget potentially laying off more federal workers. That's being tied up in the courts right now. What's the effect that's having on the U.S. labor market broadly?
When we look at the impact overall in the labor market, the shutdown is not likely to have big rippling effects unless it prolongs beyond 1 month. Right now, the biggest effect is obviously going to be for the federal workforce. Unemployed or furloughed workers are all counted as unemployed in official statistics. So unemployment will have spiked in October. This is going to make it a little bit more difficult to kind of understand what the trend of unemployment is saying underlying all of the changes from the shutdown. When we do see that data coming out in the coming weeks, when that is finally available to us, we will see this spike in unemployment because of the furloughs that are happening. One of the other bigger changes that is likely to happen when it comes to unemployment is the federal government provides the budget for states to run unemployment programs. Unemployment insurance is funded by states, but the administrative cost is shouldered by the federal government. And amid the ongoing shutdown, we will likely see some delays in unemployment processing. So when we look at first time or initial jobless claims, that is likely to see an impact in terms of data readability coming out of the next couple of weeks as well. We are expecting an increase in unemployment in initial jobless claims, but understanding how that's going to look in terms of how quickly those claims are able to be processed, how quickly that money is able to get into the hands of these unemployed workers who rely on these benefits, that's going to be another piece where we're going to see some challenges moving forward, especially on that administrative front.
Nicole, President Trump has made good on a campaign promise and effectively closed the southern border to immigration. A lot of economists were suggesting early on this year that would impact sectors that really rely upon that type of labor, such as agricultural and housing and hospitality. And it might also be reflected in higher wages for those people that might need to pay up to get those positions. Have we seen that in the data?
We have seen an impact of a loss of immigration on the overall labor force. The labor force has been shrinking for the last several months, which means that we have a tighter labor supply market. While that might sound like, okay, we don't have necessarily as many jobs coming on, but we don't have as many people looking for jobs, that might be, maybe a more balanced market, but that's not what we're seeing. There's a mismatch between the labor that's available and what's being demanded in certain industries when we look at things like construction, agriculture, and some H-1B visa holders who hold jobs like higher skilled tech work. Those things are going to be more difficult to fill moving forward, and that's going to have a big impact. When we look at construction particularly, that's going to have a big impact on the housing market, which has already been struggling for the past several years to keep up supply. And we're likely going to see more impacts moving forward for those industries who do rely on immigration to fill those vital jobs.